In the last section, we have discussed about the various components of Terraform. We created resource group in Azure using the Terraform. You might be wondering, while creating a resource or declaring all these syntax or properties, how would I know as a newcomer, as a new joiner to this technology, how would I know that which property, which resource type I need to use to create? For example, let's say if I need to create a virtual network, or if I need to create a virtual machine, or any resource, let's say key vault I need to create in Azure, then how would I know what is the syntax of key vault? Where do I get the information from? So to answer this question, you have got a very good documentation provided by Terraform website in the HashiCorp. So you go to the Terraform website, and then let's say if you want to create a key vault or virtual network, let's say call the Azure virtual network and then put Terraform. So once you do that, you get the registry.virtualNetwork. Click here. You'll get the information about the network. So your virtual network, this is how you should create a virtual network. Now if you look at the left side, you have a grouping of tree structure of all the possible resources which you can create in Azure with the help of Terraform, which are supported, right? So now if I expand, virtual network is obviously part of a network block. So within the network block, if I expand, then you would see number of resources which is available, which you can provision with the Terraform, and this is what the one which we are looking at right now. Now before I go ahead and describe more about the documentation, if I close this thing, so every resource section has got two section. So in the network section you got the resources section and you got the data source section. So resource section is basically the section which you have looked at right now. So for example, a resource is declared with the tag or a keyword resource, and whereas the data source is basically a tag which is declared with data source. So something like that. Data source is tagged with data. Yep. So which data type obviously you're looking for? Azure RM resource group, and then I will call it, let's say, RG, and then again I need to provide the name of the resource group which I am looking for, right? So what is the difference between data and resource? So resource is basically a resource which I'm asking Terraform to provision in Azure, create or update, whereas in the case of data, basically I'm asking Terraform to read the information about this resource from my Azure subscription, right? So whenever I would like to read some property of or read the information about any of the existing resource, then I use the data source. For example, I've created a resource group. Now I would like to create I would like to read the information about the resource group, then I can use the data. Though if you're creating a resource group, then anytime you have all the properties which you can access right from here with the resource block itself. But let's say if you want, you can use the data block as well. Or the second scenario is you would like to create a resource group which is example source, but you would like to read another resource group, which, let's say in our case, let's say we have another resource group, so a cam demo. So we would like to read this particular. So I can say, while I've read it this one, right? So now what I can do here is I can go ahead and say output, and then within the output I'll call acam rg location. This is just so that I know what I'm trying to do. I differentiate those, and then how do you get the value is instead of the type. So normally when you get the property of the resource, you just don't specify the resource, you just specify the type of your provider and resource group, and then instance, and then the property or attribute of that. Whereas in the case of data source, you define the type as a data source data, and then the resource type, and then the instance type, and then appropriate property. For example, if I specify the property location, now if I run the Terraform plan command again, so this should basically help me to read location of the resource group acam. Let's see. You'll see that I have got one changes notice here. It is reading the information or the property of acam resource group, and if I run the Terraform plan command apply command, then the resource property should be available in my state file. Let's see if it is completed. Yep. Now if I go and open to this file, so we have got two resource type. One is the mod is managed, which means it is managing a resource, which is add, edit, delete, whereas in case of data resource type, the mod is data. It means it is going to just read the information of that particular resource, so it will not modify any property or attribute of that resource. I hope this is clear. Right now, please make sure this is just for understanding of Terraform state file, but make sure you are not making any modifications to your state file, because if you make any slight modification to your state file, then your actual Terraform state will differ from the actual resource which is provisioned in Azure. So for example, if I delete this Terraform state file now, just for this particular demonstration, and then if I run the Terraform plan command, so what will happen is, as this state file is not available, Terraform will think that this is the resource which I need to provision, because there is no initial state to compare the actual Azure resources between the state file. So this is the first time it is trying to run, and that's the reason it says that it's going to create this resource group, and it will read the resource group acam location, right? Whereas if you look at here, the resource group is already exists. Now why it is happening? Because we have already deleted our state file, right? And now if I'm going to run the Terraform apply command, so obviously I will get an error, because Terraform will try to provision a resource which is already exists. So in this case, it will give an error that the resource group is already exists. So make sure you are not making any changes to a state file. Right now, you might be asking, if that's the case, then why is it not a very risky job to keep the state file in our project? And the second thing is, the state file, if you look at the state file information, your state file has some of the sensitive information about your resources. So if I'm going to check in this code to my source code repository, then all the information about my infrastructure is available in the source code repository. So in this case, this is not a good idea to provision a resource. So how Terraform is better than provisioning a resource in compared to Azure CLI or ARM. Now you are right in this sense. So the better option to manage your state is, instead of managing a state locally, you should always go ahead and manage a remote state. How do you use the remote state? I'll tell you. If you go to the provider, right, inside a provider you can specify the remote state management configuration. You can find the information on the Azure. So if you say remote state management Azure Terraform, so this is how you declare a Terraform remote backend state. So if you copy this, and inside our provider block you specify the remote state backend. Obviously this is not the storage account which is available to us. We will change this. So before we do that, let's understand, and that's the reason I've created a separate provider block, because these are the configuration file. I would like to keep it separate from my main execution or my main resource provisioning logic, right? So now here in the provider block we are saying, okay, use the Azure RM provider. In the Terraform we are saying, if you are using the Azure RM provider, or if you are running a Terraform, then use the backend file or manage your all my state in the Azure RM backend. Okay, and in the backend file use this particular configuration property. For example, this is the storage account of my subscription. So let's say if I have my Azure subscription where I have TF deployment, I have already got a TF deployment as a resource group, right? I'll provide the name of that resource group here. I'll provide the name of my storage account as well, which is this, and then inside the storage account you need to have a container created. So let's see if we have got the container. So we have got the container name state. So let's say, let's create another container just for our understanding. TF state. Okay, and in the TF state we are calling for now, let's say dev.terraform.tf state. You can give any name, it's not a hard and fast rule, so you can give any name for your for your state file. Now if I'm going to run the Terraform plan command, plan, obviously it will ask me, because I've changed the state file, so it will tell me, okay, create a new initialize your Terraform. Now interestingly, I got basically Terraform asking me to move our local state file to the remote location, or the location where we specified the storage account path, that because the Terraform plan command, init command identified that you have the state file on your local, and now you change the state file location to remote. So do you want to move your state file to the remote location? This means that it will copy the content of your local state file to the remote location, so that whatever changes you have done so far on your local, it will upload it to the remote location, so that you don't get any differences. So whatever work you've done it so far, that's not going to be treated as garbage. right? So by the way, last time I just whatever state file I've deleted, I've just restored it. So now there are no changes reflecting, if you can see here. So now if I say yes, then it will upload this state file, to the remote location, and you can see that the Azure successfully configured the Azure backend, and it's trying to reinitiate our Terraform code now. So even though after running the Terraform plan command, Terraform init command, if I run the Terraform plan, this should say that there is no changes to make any update. All right. Okay, this is what we expect. So now if I go and check our Terraform state file here, you can see that there are some updates which you will see. It's the same content which you have it on local. It's been uploaded here on the Terraform, on this storage account as in Terraform store. So now, even though now if I delete this file and run the Terraform plan, then I should not have any changes to be reflected, because now it's not comparing from my local file, it's comparing from the remote file. So anytime when I'm running it, it's comparing from the remote file. And this is how the best practices are, that you should keep your state at the remote location instead of on the local location. Okay, so this is what we have learned about the remote location. Obviously you can, all these values can come from the different variable files. For example, when you specify the Terraform init command, then you can specify what is the backend configuration state file. So you can provide the backend path for your state file. So I can show you how do we do that. So let's say Terraform init, and then I run the Terraform init command. You will see you have the multiple options, backend initialization. So you can see Terraform init and then run this command, something like that. So if I go and run the Terraform init backend, I think, and then you can say my backend config file is something like that. Okay, so this was one of the way to tell Terraform, instead of config or providing it value hard coded here, you can provide at the Terraform init command itself. Okay, now let's verify if you are able to run any modification. So what we are going to do now is we will create addition to, let's update our resource type. Let's create another tag, disaster recovery, and just simple tag, I'm adding it here. Now if I'm going to run the plan, then it should tell me that my resource group will have this particular changes in place, which is just addition of one more tag. As expected, it says it's going to change one more tag. Two unchanged elements are hidden. So let's run the apply command. While running the apply command, I just verify what next I need to cover. So while it is running, our next topic is about Terraform functions. So in Terraform there are various functions available which you can use, because unlike any other programming language, Terraform has also got so many built-in functions which you can use, and which will help you to write your own custom logic and decision making, things like that. So I'll tell you how to use those functions. So type Terraform Functions. So I've already created a detailed video about Terraform Functions. So link is given in the description. Terraform provider. So let's say I have a resource group. Let's go to the resource group functions as well. So now here you can see that the resource group name is hard coded. Now what we are going to do is we will use our prefix variable here, and then we will combine the prefix variable with the resource group. So what we can do is you can join it like this, var.prefix. This is one way to join the variable like that. So you can do it, for example, this is called the interpolation. You can use the concatenation like this, and this is how, if I'm going to run this, so what we are doing is we are concatenating the prefix with the rest of the string. Now if I'm going to run the Terraform plan command, then it will recreate the resource, because we have changed the name, we have added the name prefix to the existing resource group. This is one way to concatenate the value. As you can see, it says that it's forced replacement. We are adding, instead of example resource, we are calling learning example resource. Obviously I can call the learning RG, so I'll call it RG. There's no sense. So instead of this, you can do it like format. So there is a format string type function available in Terraform, which you can use it like this. You provide the values like that, and then you add those values. So here in this case, what I'm doing is I want to concatenate these two values with the help of format function. So now you can see that we have used the format function. Also, you have some other type of functions available here with us. So let's use those functions here in the output section. That would be easier for us to manipulate all those function values. For example, I can use a string type of function, let's say to upper, or not to upper but just an upper. So this will help me to, as the name suggests, the location name will be marked as an uppercase. So now if I run the plan, I got an error because we have duplicated location called the upper. Okay, if I run the Terraform plan, I'll see that the upper function is going to be used. Oops, spelling mistake. So these are the just simple function, string type of function which you can use. You can use some of the other functions like datetime, CRDI function available, but some of the very useful functions which I use a lot while writing a Terraform code, which I would like to show you. For example, I use a lot of function called merge. So merge basically merge two map values together. So it merge all the unique records. So for example, I would like to merge my tags. So I have tags values created, something like that. So let's say we have tag created like this, which we would like to merge. So merge expect two parameters. One is the source map value. For example, let's say we call the application tag and we are calling it as an, let's say application is called, we are calling demo, and then we are saying, okay, whatever tags you receive from the input, you merge those tags with this application tag, or you can, this is basically, this is my variable 1 and I'm merging variable 1 to variable 2. Both of them are type of map. So now if I'm going to run the plan command, then what it will do is it will, so I'm passing here 3 different tags, okay, and now it will merge another tag which is the application tag to my resource group. Okay, so this is how you can use the merge function. Let's run the apply command. Next function is about the location. So for example, location function, you can, if you are using the key value functions or key value pair or object type of data, and then in the object type, if you want to look for one property, and if the property is not available, then you might want to fill in the value of the property with the default value. I'll show you how do you do that. I've already created a detailed video on how do you use different functions in Terraform. The link is provided in the description. If you wish to learn more about Terraform functions, you can go to the video and refer that as well. Let's move on now to the next topic, is about the Json syntax. Now, as of now, we have learned that we have the Terraform structure, and in the Terraform structure we are passing the parameters or variables here like this. In the flat structure, when you have the variable in a particular sequence, but you can go ahead and then define the variable values like that. But there is a JSON structure which you can use to pass the value as well. So you can call it like, let's say, dev.tfvar. .json. So this is how you declare your variable file name. So inside the file name, I can say my location name, location, and then I can say location as an East US 2. This is my location value. Next, I can define the prefix, let's say, and prefix I'm calling it as an learning 2. So now instead of using the tfvar, what I can do here is I can delete this for now, and then I can use the tf JSON file. So let's run the Terraform init command, Terraform plan command. So in the Terraform plan, you can give the tfvar files like this. You specify the path of the var file. In this case, it's in the same folder, so I'll call the dev.tfvars.json, and then this is how you pass the JSON value. This is another way to pass the variable file while running the Terraform plan command. and you can see that it has got the value which I have passed. So in the JSON I have passed the value learning2, so it has got the value. And now the location, the default value of the location was East US, and now we are passing the default value as the East US 2, or you can pass any value basically. One more thing is about the Terraform plan command or passing the variables. You can pass the variables as var and then provide the name of the variables and something like, let's say, location, and the value of the variables, let's say West Europe, and then if you pass, you can combine this as an tfvar as value dot so let's say I'm just removing the value from location value from here, so the value I'm passing it from this value, so you can combine both of them. Okay, so now you can see that the location which I value which I have passed from the plan command by passing the variable values. Yeah, so you can see I have passed the value as a location here, you can, and it's referring from here, and now one of the value it is referring from the JSON, so you can combine both of them. You don't need to use the reserved tfvar file, so that you are not checking in this particular file and this JSON can come from any other file type, right? So this is how you use the tfvar files and the JSON syntax or the JSON file in your project. Now one of the basic thing which I should have told you at the beginning of this session is about how do you write a comment in the Terraform code. To write a comment, you can use simply hash key and then write your own comments. So I'm writing, this is a simple it's a Azure resource group for demo. Okay, you can write a multi-line comment as well. Something like that. Okay, so now let's look at the resource. Let's say if I want to create a virtual network, so this is my virtual network resource type. You can see that I have the resource tag and the name of the resource, Azure rm_ virtual network, and then instance name, and these are the different properties which are available for my virtual network type. Okay, now this is the sample provisioning of virtual network which is given in this particular example, but if you scroll down to the same documentation page, you'll get the information around the argument reference, such as in what different argument this particular resource type expect, and by having the each and every argument, you will get to know that whether a specific argument is a type of required or a mandatory argument or the optional argument. For example, name of the virtual network is the mandatory argument, resource group where you want to place your virtual network is the mandatory, again address space is required for the virtual network, and the location is also required. But if you scroll it down, there are some further properties which is basically optional. For example, DDoS protection. If you want, you can enable the DDoS protection in your Azure subscription in your virtual network. Similarly, DNS server, subnet, and things like that is totally optional. So you can create or use those properties to provision your resources. Now at the bottom, you get the attribute reference. For example, the attribute reference in the sense wherein basically, let's say if I want to create the virtual network, then what are the different property which will be available to me with the resource block. For example, if I type virtual network Azure RM virtual network dot instance name dot, then in the last dot, what are the different properties available? So these are the different properties which will be available to you to use in your logic. Okay, not but the least one is the import. If you would like to import any existing resource which is already been created through some other automation tool such as Azure CLI, PowerShell, or even it is created manually, if you want to import that resource in your Terraform code, then you can use this import command. Okay, so this answers a question wherein how do I know that what are different properties available to provision a resource, and how do I configure my resource block. So let's say if I search for storage account, so this is Azure RM storage account, and this is how you create a storage account. Simply I can create a storage account name with some random name, str0123 xyz, something like that. So it should not exceed more than 24 character, I believe. Now if I run my Terraform plan command, ups, tfvar.dev doesn't exist. So let's run the Terraform plan. So it's asking for some more parameters. Now to create a storage account, we have copied this, and from the previous section what we have done is we have created one folder called vars, and we are keeping all our JSON variable files inside that. So I've created each variable file for each of my environment. Let's say I have a variable file for dev, prod, and tst. So if I go to the dev environment, then I have all my variables defined in JSON, something like that, and similarly you can define the rest of the things in the same fashion. Now let's use these variables. So to use the variable, I'll do is I'll go to the main file, and this is something new which I'm going to do. I'm like these variables, you if you are aware about the .NET language or any object oriented language, you have in the languages you have the global variable and the local variable, right? So these variables you can treat it as in global variable, and now let's create a local variable. So how do you create a local variable? You use locals, and inside the locals you can refer the variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create environment equals to format something like this, environment prefix, I'll call it prefix, and then let's call it as an var dot project name, var dot company name. So first company name, project name, environment instance, so something like that. So I'm keeping it short, so let me expand. 1 and a 4, 1 2 3 4. So let's add one more. We'll call it as in location. It's called location. Okay, now this is my local variable. So what I'll do is, here I will use rg and then dash. You call this local variable as a local, don't use the s, last character s, don't use locales, it's use local and then the name of the variable. So this is how you should do that. Okay, now to create a storage account, I would like to create a storage account inside the same rg, so I'll give it the name or reference like this, and then I'll create the storage account in the same location where I have my resource group is created. I will call the merge function same as this, like this, and this is how it will look like. So now if I go ahead and create or call the Terraform var file, so inside the var, let me see, it's vars or var, it's vars. So let's see how our plan will look like now. So this is the way you should use the local file. Okay, so we got now you can see that I have got the resource group name created, and this storage account name is also saying it is going to create a storage account, and my resource group name is going to be rg-p, which is the name of my company, and then project name, and then location, and the name of the resource, right? So now if I run the plan apply command, then it should create a resource group. It should destroy the earlier resource group, it should create a resource group for me. And then now when I run the previously when I used to run the plan command, apply command, then it runs as is, but now this is asking for these values again. And why it is the case? Because when you run the plan command, you specify the plan with some set of variables, so it has generated a plan for you, but you have not stored the plan somewhere here in your project directory, right? And that's where when you run the apply, as the lack of unavailability of plan, your apply command is basically trying to run the plan first and then apply. So when it runs the plan, it basically checks the value of all those variables which you have declared in the variable file, and as it did not find any variable values, it is asking you to fill in those variable values for you. So now the question is what you should do in these cases. So to get rid of this kind of to deal with this situation, what you should do is when you run the plan command, basically you should run the plan command with the help of plan output. I'll show you, because I haven't provided any values, then it is basically trying to delete the outcome. Now how we run the plan command is, you can specify the inside the plan command, you can always specify, let me ignore the location variable for now. So while running the plan command, I'm passing the JSON for my dev environment, and I'm saying okay out the tf dot out, something like that, or you can specify any file type, basically any name you can give. And now if I'm going to run the Terraform plan, then it will give the same information, because it has created, as I did not provide any values, it has created the values for the other type. So let's see. So everything is now changing. The storage account is also changing now, because I've changed the location of the storage account, so everything is changed. The resource group name is also going to be changed. So now instead of Terraform apply, I need to run Terraform apply, and then I need to provide the name of my plan and then auto approve, right? So this is how you run the Terraform plan and apply command. Oops, when you pass the apply command, don't need to pass the auto approve. Sorry. So now this time when I run the Terraform apply, this is going to create the Terraform. This is going to create Azure resources using the Terraform plan, which I have provisioned in the plan command. The Terraform apply is completed. I have the new resource group created, which should have a Azure resource group, Azure storage account available in it. So now you can see that I have the resource group in which I have the plan. Now I can see that the resource group has got location as a full name, is US, but if it is going to be increased, the location name, something like that, I don't want to use the same naming convention for my location. So what I'm going to do now is I'll create another local. So let's say we will call it as an, so let's call the locations, and here we are going to create locations as a, if it is East US, then we are going to call EUS, US. Okay, if it is West Europe, then we will call the WS. Europe West. So now so what we can do, instead of using the location type, I can anytime go ahead and use lookup. Lookup, I say the locations. So let's see, I'll explain you what I'm trying to do now. So let's see if this plan is going to run successfully. Now you can see that the resource group is now, instead of complete name as an East US, we are changing the name to East US. So with the help of lookup function, what we are saying is, if we receive the location as a full location name, we would like to limit the location name to a shortcut abbreviated location name, which is a 3-character location name. So here in our local file, we have defined the list of all the possible locations, and if a location is available here, then it will give the result. So what it's trying to do is, it's trying to search, perform a lookup operation in this collection, and just trying to find out this key, which is the key of a location, and then if the key is available, then it will return the value of the key, right? So this is my collection, this is the key it is trying to find. If the key is available, then it will return the value of the key. Now let's say I have, instead of that, I do not have a location, or in my collection I don't have the key which I am searching. For example, in my location collection, I don't have the East US location, which I am passing here in the variable. So what will happen? Obviously, as it is not going to find a value in the collection, it is going to throw me an error, right? Let me show you, because it will say, okay, you're trying to search a key in a collection which is not available, so it will throw an error. In such cases, what you are going to do is, you have the third parameter available. You can see that I have got the error that the location has got 2 objects and there is no matching attribute which you are looking for. So now in this case, what I can do is I can go ahead and search for, let's say, US. So you can pass the default values. So I'm saying search for the value key in this collection, and if the key is not available, then use the default value, which is this one. Let's see if it is going to work now. Yep, it is working, because even though we do not have any key available, I can see I'll say none. So it will try to create a resource group with the location name none. It's just the text value which we are using it, right? We are not using the actual location as a none. So the resource group name will be created with, instead of EUS, it will say it is going to create with the AUS none, right? This is how it will work. So let's change it back to EUS. Then now this time it will find, and everyone will be happy. This I've used my lookup function very often. Let's say if I would like to pass some of the default values while creating the resource. For example, let's call the storage properties. So let's call it as an, I will say my access there should be like this. Okay. So we can always go ahead and run the lookup function here. Use local dot storage properties. If let's search for the property is called, this one, can't exist there. If the exist here property is not available, then use the default value, for example. Standard. So something like this. So if I'm going to run the plan again, we don't have the count here defined. So let me go ahead and define the storage account here value. So if I'm going to define a variable count here, So let me run the apply command, so that it recreates the story account and the resource group like we wish to create it. So far in our Terraform project, we have created a couple of resources like storage account, resource group. We have learned how to define different functions like map, lookup, how do you declare local variables, how do you declare variables in JSON files, how do you configure different environment variables so that you create the same piece of code and then pass on the environment variable from there. Now that looks good, but what about if I would like to create a reusable piece of code wherein I would like to want to reuse that piece of code again and again, like you create a functions, your own functions in the object-oriented language. So in something like that, if I want to create those things, then what do I do? That is something which we are going to learn now. So to create a reusable piece of code, what you can do is you can define the Terraform in a separate directory, and you can create you can call the directory as a module, and that's where the concept of Terraform module comes into the picture. Let me show you how do you do that. So for that, let's first of all, what we are going to do is we will copy this, create a folder called project, and then move all your Terraform from here to there inside the project folder. I will delete this file. Let's create another folder. So we are going to call it as in modules. Inside the module, I will create another folder for the storage module account. I'll create another folder called network. Now the Terraform block which I have for my storage account, what I'll do is I will go ahead and create another module file, main.tf. I'll copy all my modules here. I'll create a variables.tf file. I'll also create output.tf. So instead of variable, let me call this as an input so that we have the input.tf. So I've got input, main, and my output file. So input, wherein I'm going to define what is the name of my variables or the Terraform story account variable name. So let's say story account name and variable location, for example. Okay, you can call it like, instead of hard coding the variables, you can use it like this. Basically you need variables like resource group name, So here we will call it as a resource group name as a variable. Okay, and some of the properties, like let's keep this property as is for now, hard coded. We'll get back to these. We'll call the variable name as in tags as well. So I'll just ignore the tags. Okay, now this is my module folder. I'll call it infra so that it goes on top. So this is my infra folder. Now here I have my main block. So how do you call the modules is you call it like modules and then the name of module, let's say storage account. And then source, which is the location of your module file. So in this case, as we have the modules here and then storage account. Okay, now next is what different parameters is asking for. So this source group name, which is the name of source group name dot rg dot name. Okay, location, so we are going to call it as in location. And then name of the storage account, which is, let's say we are going to pass for now str01xyz123. Okay, this is how you call the module. So I'll call it like this. See, this is a storage account module. Okay, something like that. So now if I run the Terraform plan command, it will not work because it requires to initialize the plan. So let's go ahead and initialize the plan. So if I go and it says initialize, because it's going to download the module directory. So from here we need to go one level up, and yep, so we have located our modules directory and we are saying okay, download the storage account module from here. Now if I'm going to run the Terraform plan command, that should help me to create the storage account. Yep, because where's it says that it has failed to connect. So first of all, I've given the name incorrect value to the parameter. It should be location. Okay, let's run now. Seems like I've misspelled the source group name, which is this. Yep. Check the source group name value. Tags also required, so let's put the value of the tags as well. Where tags So now you can see that I have used the module function, and with the help of module I am able to create this story account. So let me go ahead and run the Terraform plan command, apply command. While it is running the Terraform plan command, what I'll do is I'll create the Azure virtual network as well. So this is what we will do. We'll create a resource or virtual network module. We'll create virtual network main.tf. Basically I'll just copy the same thing with those two files. So instead of this I'll call it network name. And now we have our network resource ready, so you can say where dot okay. So if I go to the infra, I can go ahead and create my another module. and I can call my module name as an so network name, and I can call it network name as an format. And in this case what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two parameters. One is local dot which is this one, and then next one I'm going to use vnet. So our last deployment was completed, and we should have our resource group available in our resource group, and the story account available here. You can see that we have the environments available. So now if I run the Terraform, I need to run the Terraform init command again because we have run the recreate added another module. So this time we are going to call network. So this is going to download the network module. Initialization completed. Now let's run the Terraform plan command. Says vnet name is not expected. Let's see what is the name we are looking for. Oops. So as you can see, now we have got two modules. One is creating the virtual network and other one is creating the storage account. So we have wrapped up our module configuration like this. While this module is running, let's see what else we want to do. Now as per our current structure with this project, we have multiple environment configured with the different set of parameters which we are passing it. We have got the reusable code blocks which we are creating to configure multiple resources like storage account and modules, but at the moment we are just creating one instance of the storage account and one instance of the network. But let's say if I want to create multiple storage account, then how I can do that? So to create a multiple storage account, let's say I can call it like count function in my module. So let's say call, given the value of the count is 2, and then here I can concatenate the name. So call the format function. You might have also that I use the concat function a lot. So this time I'm not putting a dash because storage account doesn't allow you to put the dash, and then I'll call the count.index this is the index value which we will get. So on this module there will be a loop run for the count up to 2 times, and then we'll create a storage account with value 1. Let's say we'll create a storage account 01 str demo, or in fact what I'm going to do now is I'll use the environment function prefix in this case, and what I'm doing here is I'll use the replace function and local dot environment. So inside that I'm replacing this with dashes with blank space. So this environment prefix will have a value something like, let's say, p learn dash eus dash dev dash 01. So after applying the replace function, the value will become p learn us dev 01, something like that. This is what the value will look like, right? And because why I'm using the replace function, because storage account doesn't allow you to create the storage account name with the dashes in place, and that's the reason I'm replacing the dashes with the blank space. And now once you have the environment prefix, I'm going to append the another value as 1, and then you will have 2 storage account, one with this and another one with 02. Yep. So this is how you can create multiple of them. Let's run the plan again. Let's see what the value we get with the plan. It will destroy the existing storage account because we have changed the name. As I mentioned, it's going to destroy the existing storage account, which is this one. And now we will have two new storage account because we are looping it through, and you can see that module storage account 01, and the name of the resource group, it will be the same resource group name, and the name which we are giving to our storage account is this G01, and the next one should be 02. Yep, it's 01 because index always start from 0, that's why. Let's see if I'm going to run the plan, apply command. Hopefully the storage account should be available globally. If it is, then we should have the storage account created. Our two different resources are created. Let's verify the storage accounts here. If we have the storage account available, you can see one of the first storage account is available, and we got both of them. So this is how you can dynamically create multiple resource with the help of count loop, and you can run the count loop on the module itself. So this running the count or the loop on the module feature has been introduced in Terraform 0.13 onwards. So if you are using any version previous to that, then you might not be able to run the count function on the modules. You can run the count function on the individual resource type. For example, I can run the count here on this account here. For example, let's say if we would like to create a storage account, it's not from here, and we would like to create the storage account from the count like this equals true, and then if we want to append the name, we can give the name like this. So basically it will create the same resource, but instead of running the loop from the module, I'm trying to run the loop from the individual resource. So I'm trying to run 2 times loops. So now what it will do is it will try to create a resource. So let's now you can see that it is trying to recreate the resource, but this time it will delete the storage account with the same name and recreate it with the same name. Now the reason why it is trying to delete the resource, because we have changed the state file. Earlier we were creating the resources from the module, but now we are creating a resource from the resource block, and that's where the changes in the state file has been found. So the state file, as the state file is depicting the change, now it will try to recreate the resource. So this is how you can do it from the command as well, from the loop through the command as well. So I'll run it again and you'll see the result. Now this is about one of the way to use the to provision multiple resources with the help of loop using the count.